Read and get rich. Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. We haven't done book reviews in a while here. I wanted to give you a good one. This is, I know it says Read and Grow Rich. The title, the newest title, I believe, is called Read and Get Rich. Why the title change? Well, this is a title that brings into mind the book Think and Grow Rich. And this was a play off of that. This is by Burke Hedges, by the way, awesome author. And this is an older book. It goes back about 20 years. Let me say, 23 years to be exact. And this is one of these first. Yeah, this is one of those first printing copies. I got it. It's nice and yellowed. I got it pretty early on in my career, and I read it back then, and it's been one of those that I've held on to, and just recently had my wife read, and she fought me in the very beginning, and then as she got into it, she said, all of our kids need to read this book, and everyone else should read this book too. And it's true. Okay, so why is it called Read and Get Rich now instead of Read and Grow Rich? Well, they got in trouble. I believe they had or at least threatened legal action against them by the Napoleon Hill Institute. I believe that's the case. Don't quote me. You could probably go and find the history on that. That they tend to do that, where if anybody has anything that's similar to Think and Grow Rich, they don't want anyone profiting off of that name. And so these, from that point on, you can still find these original titles on Amazon.com, but you can also find the new one. Still, either way, awesome book. Let's get into the actual meaning of the book. It says how the hidden power of reading can make you richer in all areas of your life. So he specifically tells story of his own life about how coming across certain books helped him to go from a Cuban immigrant and start with very little and to be able to build up a really substantial empire here in the U.S. To this day, Burke Hedges is one of those really inspirational figures. He's written some amazing books, and this is a good one. If you're just wanting to either motivate yourself to read, there's stuff you should be reading. People who read good stuff, and you wish you could be like them. You just can't motivate yourself to stick with it. This is one you want to start with. It's a thin book. It's easy to read. Lots of space in between, and amazing quotes. Really good stories. It's an easy read and one that will encourage you to keep reading. It's just one of those that really goes through the details of why reading matters. I know at one time in my life I didn't want to get too far into reading because I could see there's an ego trap with reading. You read a bit, if you find yourself reading all the time and just absorbing knowledge, it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything good with them, and you just build up your ego really high. But what I found was, over time, that it's a good idea to be able to expose yourself to a lot of different ideas, whether you agree with them or not. And you can watch videos on YouTube, and you can listen to audiobooks, but there is something unique about reading the written word, especially in physical form, which he doesn't go into here because books hadn't really gone digital by this point. But you can find in other places where people talk about the fact that if you read digitally, you are not absorbing as much as if you read physically. It's an odd sensation, and me personally, I love audiobooks. I love YouTube videos. I love taking things in that way. But if you can combine it with a physical book that you're reading, for some reason your mind adapts to it differently. You also can take one idea, and if you have one idea stretched out into an entire book, you will have a greater background and more of a real concept of what the author was trying to get to you than if you watched a TED Talk or you listened to the book once. If you can go through a book and you go through it more than once, go through it as often as possible, if it's a good one, if it's one that touches you the first time, you ought to keep hitting that book up and really digging in as much as you can. That's a good one, and it's one that I really do think it should be required reading. If you could have required reading lists outside of the modern day school system, I would highly recommend that being on it. And if you want to get your kids and grandkids reading, that's a great one to start with. So hopefully that's helpful. Go check it out. You can no doubt, because the book's been around for 20 years, you could find lots of different people reviewing it and talking about it online, so you can get something more in depth from someone else. But that's just a little piece from me. Because I talk about books so often, I've gone through periods of time in my life where I was not reading much. And when I was in those spaces of my life, I kind of got stuck in certain areas and I didn't know a way out of it. It's when I really connected with people and found books that were recommended to me by people who I respected, that allowed me to grow out of that obstacles that I came across, which were really mental obstacles. They don't seem like it when you're going through it, but they really are mental obstacles. And once you change your perspective a little bit, the whole world can open up to you. Hopefully that's helpful to you. Go check out my training on content marketing. I always have a little bar down here if you're watching with the address contentmarketingquestion.com. That is my initial training for people that are wondering whether content marketing is right for them. Okay, it's not a book. In fact, it's pretty straightforward and simple. It's a training you can go through. Go purchase it. If it doesn't answer the question whether content marketing is right for you or not, you'll get your money back. So that's all I've got for tonight. We'll see you next time. In the meantime, get out there and let the magic happen.